Good evening, Chair. Calls to order special legislative day 25-014. I would ask you to all stand for the pledge, followed by opening prayer by Councilmember Bennett. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, thank you for being with us tonight. Help us to make decisions that are right by our community. Be with our community in moments of joy and in moments of sorrow. Be with the Havre Grace community tonight as we support a family who's going through a tough time. And, just support everyone to remind ourselves why we come together and not why we come apart. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Council, along those lines, I would also like to express our deepest condolences to Patty Hankins, her family, and friends due to the passing of her sister, Karen, who had suffered for the past 25 months with a terrible bout of aggressive brain cancer. Agenda number 4, call for final reading of bills. Bill 25-002, comprehensive zoning, Harford County zoning maps as amended. Mr. Giangiordano.
Council President, I move to approve Bill 25-002 as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and second to approve Bill 25-002. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bennett.
Mr. President, I just wanted to make sure to say tonight, if I could rewind time and start the comprehensive rezoning process again. There's a lot of lessons learned for me. I was at a CAB meeting recently, and one of the people came up to me and said, I came out and spoke at the comprehensive rezoning public hearing, both when it was hosted by Planning and Zoning and then when it was hosted by the council, and they said, and little did I know, the train had already left the station before I ever spoke. And whether that sentiment is true or not, the fact that it was felt, for me, feels like a failure of governance. You never want anyone to feel that we're making decisions in a vacuum, absent of their feedback. And so that rests on me. And then my other thought is I really hope we look at the master plan soon. I think that is desperately needed because we were really just nibbling at the edges of comprehensive rezoning without evaluating our master plan for what our future is going to look like. So I hope that's something that we could pursue before the end of our term is up, because I think there's a lot we could look at to help our county and what direction we go. But with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. And I would echo your sentiments as far as the master plan is concerned. I'm on the record a year ago or more suggesting that we reverse the process, that master plan should have been in place first before comp zoning. Anyone else, council? Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bullosaddle?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 6 votes in the affirmative, 1 vacant, 2502 as amended is hereby approved. Bill 25-004.
I did raise my hand up before.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
They all know. That's all right.
I apologize. Catch it next week.
We should have buttons that light up.
Yes, 2 weeks. Bill 25-004, water and sewer rate revisions, has been pulled by the county executive. Mr. Sandless, you're here to speak to it, I believe? Mr. Overbay? Okay.
Good evening, Council President, members of the council. Council President had asked that the county come to offer a brief presentation or just at least an explanation as to a communication that went to the council president and all members of the council last week. So as you are aware, the county executive proposed a 5-year rate schedule, which has been the county's practice since 2016, to address water and sewer rates for the next 5-year period of time. The current rate schedule that we are operating under ended with July of 24 rates. So the idea behind this goes back quite a ways, actually. Previous administrations and previous councils goes back to 2016, at which point the county was operating prior to 2017 in a way where revenues were not meeting the operational and the capital expenses of our water and sewer program. So that said, the county executive and the council at that time determined that taking a look at this every 5 years and establishing a schedule that allowed for making sure that revenues kept track with expenses associated with the program, because it is important to point out that the expenses of this program are covered entirely by the users, not the general tax-paying public. That said, the result of that decision by the council and county executive at that time led to our first 5-year plan as to how we were going to address funding this initiative. In 2016 and 2017, that resulted in a rate correction of just north of 25% for each of those 2 years, and the balance of that 5-year plan averaged 4.5%. Following that, we entered into a second 5-year plan, as had been the practice, and that was 4.5%, which, as stated, expired in June of 2024. So what was placed in front of you actually was initiated exactly a year ago this month. So in April of 2024, we initiated a study with independent industry experts who sat in front of you this last week to present the findings, and their findings was for a modest reduction of the rate increase. So I guess their idea was that the subsequent 5 years should be at 4.2% in order to continue covering the cost of the program. That said, the county executive's communication to each of you council members, I think, was pretty clear in that since April of last year, when this study was initiated, there's a lot of things that have happened within our economy on the federal level, the state, and the local levels that are changes that I think were articulated by the council last week. And in saying that, I think the county executive, appreciated your stance, and as such, the desire to put a pause on rate increases at this time. He acknowledged that, and thus the letter indicated that he was withdrawing the legislation, and we, as stated, revisit this at a future time.
Robbie, you want to add anything?
No, I believe that covered it, but if there's any other questions available.
No, I think the only thing that I want to add, just for the record, as I did last week, is that in 2016, 2017, when we made those hard decisions to make that lift, that 25% that you're talking about, it's because the fund balance was nearly depleted. When we came in 14, as we talked about, it was $6 million, if I remember correctly. And today, we are in far better shape, as the county executive recognized in his message. So I think it's best that we do pause and move forward and take a look at it again at another time, give our citizens a little bit of a break, because they're getting pounded every day, as I said before, by rates that are out of our control. This is within our control. So I appreciate his position. I appreciate you being here tonight to let the citizens know why this transpired the way it did. And thank you. I'm sorry? Mr. Bennett?
Just a quick question, can you still get to us what the rates would look like if we were usage only versus flat fee plus usage?
Now, I will say that will probably require a much more extensive, a much more extensive study. You could probably do some type of back of the envelope type deal, just taking the total cost of the system and divide it by the number of gallons serviced. But in order to probably do it properly, it would have to be part of the initial study. One of the things we did look at, though, I know you did bring up in Havre de Grace, is that there are some fixed costs within the Havre de Grace bill. I know there's like about a $20 debt service cost in there, and I think there's another cost. So it's not entirely only a volume-based charge. That would be a entirely volume-based charge would be very atypical. It certainly can be one of those things that you look at, but in order to probably do it properly, you would need to do it as part of a much more extensive study in order to get that, as opposed to just saying like, oh, by not doing the rates, how much would the rates need to be, next year or the following year to catch up? That's a little bit more of an easier math issue.
Mr. Riley?
Steve, because it's user-based, though, if they're not gonna pay the 4.2% this year, then next year, it's gotta be either 4.2, in fact, it's gotta be higher than 4.2. Because again, it's user-based, so they're paying for the system.
And this kind of gets into the issue of the reserves, okay? And the reserves that we have within the water and sewer system are not just, reserves for the sake of being reserves. They're largely a result of depreciating assets. We have a rather extensive water and sewer system, much of which was built out in the 80s and 90s. It's an aging system. Those assets are aging. They need to be replaced. And kind of more or less from an accounting standpoint, you depreciate your assets over the long term. And the ideal way of doing this is to put aside money, every year from that depreciation expense so that you can replace those assets as needed. And that's why we've accumulated these reserves, and that's why the plan is to use these reserves largely to replenish the capital system. From an operating standpoint, we are okay. We are fully meeting our obligations. But yes, at some point, you are going to need to change the rate structure. You either will need to change the rate structure or not replenish capital at the same level. So yes, ultimately, there's no way of getting around it. I mean, the system is an expensive system to operate. There's a lot of environmental regulations. There's a lot of state and federal regulations. And in order to do that properly, you do need to have the proper revenue streams. Now, so we can take a pause in the short term from that. But you're right, in the long term, there's kind of no escaping the math.
Thanks.
Mr. Giangiordano?
In that regards, then, can you give us a projection for the next 5 years on the capital expenses?
Well, that's one thing that we'll be looking at, and we'll be going through this with our capital budget projections. We will need to reduce the revenue in the budget that was submitted, and we'll be discussing that. That's in the area of $3.2 million, and then we'll need to look at the capital expenditures that are planned for the next several years, and we will probably need to stretch out that period. It's very similar to anything that's life cycle driven. You have a life cycle and you're like, look, we need to replace this. You have a roof on your house. You should replace your roof every 20 years. Now, does that mean if you don't replace it until year 22 that you're going to have a waterfall in your bedroom? Probably not. But at some point you are going to need to replace that roof. So that's kind of where we're going to need to be. We're going to need to look at the capital projects and stretch them out until we do get a better sense of like, okay, what is going to be the long-term revenue solution. So operations completely fine, but ongoing capital will need to be examined. We'll talk about that during our budget work sessions probably.
You done? Okay. And to Mr. Riley's point, I know that you're gonna have to pay someday, sometime, at some price. But today, our citizens have enough on them, and I appreciate the pause. And then when you come back, things may be in a better situation. No different than we operate our stuff at home. We can't just go by every day. We pay attention to what things cost, relevant to how much income we have. So I'm glad to see we're taking the pause. Thank you. Agenda number 5, enrollment of bills. Bill 25-002 as amended serves as the text finally passed. 6, unfinished business. Consideration of Republic Central Committee, Council District B nominees. Mr. Giangiordano, may I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Allison Imhoff as council member for District B.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Sottles. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ms. Imhoff as the District B representative. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bennett.
Mr. President, I'd just like to say it's been really great going through this process. Falston's on the polar opposite end of the county from where I live. And so getting to know all 3 candidates was really, for me, a great way of getting to know District B and the Falston Forest Hill community. And both candidates had many emails sent on their behalf from members of the community, which was really encouraging to see, to be able to hear from them. And the other thing I think is worth pointing out is if Ms. Imhoff is approved, it's been a rare occurrence that there's been 3 women on the county council at once, which will be a pretty special, unique thing. And I think that's great because 2 terms ago there were 0. So that's pretty special. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Anyone else? I also am going to make a quick comment in regards to the 3 candidates. We had outstanding interviews, conversations. Each brought different qualities to that position if appointed. And just want to thank, again, Mr. McBride is in the audience from the Central Committee. I want to thank you for all of your help. I want to thank the other candidates for their stepping up and making that commitment, because they all realize how much of a commitment it is. So thank you for that. Ms. Dixon?
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mrs. Robert?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Bulsato?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 6 votes in the affirmative, and hopefully this is the last time for a while that I say 1 vacant. The appointment of Miss Allison Imhoff to fill the District B vacancy is hereby approved. Congratulations. We're fortunate enough tonight to have the clerk of the court with us this evening. Ms. Karzeski, if you come forward, Ms. Imhoff. Stand, gentlemen. Stand. Want the microphone?
Just for the online. Just for the online, please? Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so I don't have to do all this, fill out papers, do all things. All righty. I'm going to have you go ahead and raise your right hand. Right hand. Okay, and repeat after me. All right. I state your name. Do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of Harford County Council Member for District B according to the Constitution and laws of the state. Congratulations. Yeah, so I need you to put today's date, which is 4/22/25. Print your name, sign your name, and go ahead and put the address here.
Allison, congratulations. There you go. That's good. Now I'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Yes, sir. Okay.
Come try out the seat if you
Not
want.
now, not now.
No, we're all done.
Okay, well, there you go.
You can sit the last.
You told me no, so I'm just going by what you told me.
The last agenda item is adjournment.
So yes, agenda item 7, we're going to adjourn. Thank you.